What would you do if a little girl carrying a baby walked up to you in a grocery store and said, "I'll pay you back when I grow up"? Would you help her or walk away? The bell above the door gave a tired little jingle as it swung open. Cold air pushed in behind her, mixing with the faint smell of bleach and day-old bread. 9-year-old Kendra Wallace tightened her arms around the baby in her care, his tiny body bundled in a thin blue blanket. His head rested on her shoulder, warm but too light, and every few seconds he let out a soft whimper that pierced straight through her chest. Her shoes squeaked on the tile floor as she stepped inside the food depot on Decatur Street. Not the cleanest place, not the safest either, but it was the only store close enough to walk to. Her breath hung in the air for a second before disappearing, and for a moment she thought about turning around. She hated being here, hated the way people looked at her when she carried Noah, like they were counting her mistakes, even though none of them were hers. Kendra swallowed hard and glanced down at her palm. 3 coins sat there, warm from her clenched fist. 2 nickels and a dime. 15 cents. The milk she needed cost $3.79. She didn't need math to know she didn't even come close. She took a deep breath, eyes darting over the shelves. Cans of beans, stacks of bread, a wall of cereal boxes she couldn't dream of touching. At the far end, she saw it, the milk fridge. Tall, glass doors lined with gallons of white and jugs of chocolate milk. She shifted Noah higher in her arms and started walking. Every step felt heavy, like the floor might break under her. Halfway there, Noah fussed again. Kendra whispered against his ear, "Shh, it's okay. I'm gonna get you something. Just hang on." Her voice cracked on the last word, but she kept moving. She had to. And then she saw him. A man standing near the dairy section, one hand resting on the handle of a shopping cart. He wore a long black coat that looked expensive, like the kind you see on TV, and leather gloves that didn't have a single scuff. His shoes shined under the harsh fluorescent lights, and the bag he carried, dark brown leather, gold zipper, looked like it cost more than everything in her apartment. He was tall, probably in his 40s, with sharp features and skin the color of warm bronze. A man who didn't belong in this neighborhood. A man who looked like money. Kendra froze for a second, her heart pounding against Noah's tiny back. People like him didn't shop here. People like him didn't notice kids like her. She almost turned away, but then she thought about the empty fridge at home, about Mama sitting at the kitchen table, staring at an overdue bill with tears sliding down her cheeks when she thought Kendra wasn't looking, about Noah crying all morning because his bottle had nothing but water in it. Her throat tightened. She couldn't go home with nothing, not again. She took another step forward, then another. Her fingers gripped the blanket tighter. Every voice in her head screamed at her to stop, to turn around, to disappear before someone laughed at her or told her off. But something else, something deep and stubborn, kept pushing her feet forward. When she was just a few feet away, the man looked up. His eyes were sharp, dark, and focused, like he wasn't used to being interrupted. Kendra felt her chest cave in, but she forced the words out anyway, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Sir, I don't have enough money for milk." He blinked, like he wasn't sure he'd heard right. She swallowed hard and added, "But I promise I'll pay you back when I grow up." The words hung in the air like a secret. Around them, the store seemed to go quiet for a split second. Even Noah stilled in her arms, his tiny face pressed against her shoulder as if waiting for an answer. The man didn't speak right away. His jaw tightened slightly, his brows knitting as he looked at her, really looked at her. And for some reason, that was worse than if he'd laughed. But before he could say anything, someone else in the aisle noticed what was happening. And that's when everything started to change. The man's hand froze on the fridge door. His eyes moved slowly from Kendra's worn-out sneakers to the thin blanket covering the baby in her arms. His voice, when it came, was calm but low, almost like he didn't trust his own ears. "What did you just say?" Kendra's cheeks burned. Her fingers clenched around the edge of Noah's blanket, her coins pressing painfully into her palm. She felt every pair of eyes in the aisle drilling into her. An older woman near the cheese display stopped pretending to look at yogurt and tilted her head their way. I said..." Her throat tightened, but she pushed the words out. "I don't have enough money for milk, but I'll pay you back when I grow up." The man's eyes softened for just a fraction of a second before settling into something unreadable. His voice was quiet but strong. "Where's your mom?" Kendra shifted her weight, looking down at her shoes. The laces were dirty, frayed, and tied in uneven knots. She's at home." "Why didn't she come with you?" Kendra's chest rose and fell faster now. She didn't want to tell him the truth, that Mama had been sick all week, that they didn't even have a car, that the last few dollars went to keeping the lights on. She didn't want him to think bad about her mama. "She's tired," she whispered. "She said we need milk for my brother. He's hungry." Noah made a tiny sound then, like he was agreeing, his little mouth moving against the blanket. The man's gaze dropped to the baby, and something changed in his face. He stepped closer, his leather shoes clicking softly on the tile. "How old is he?" Kendra bit her lip. "Almost 1. And you came here by yourself?" Kendra nodded slowly. She could feel her heart thudding in her ears. People were watching now, whispering to each other. She heard one man mutter something like, "Where's her parents?" and another woman say, "Poor baby." The man glanced around, then back at her. "What's your name?" "Kendra," she said, almost too quietly. "Kendra," he repeated, like he was testing the name on his tongue. "And your little brother?" "Noah." The man breathed out slowly, almost like he was trying to keep his temper in check. "Okay, Kendra, listen to me. You don't have to promise me anything. I can buy you a gallon of milk. That's not a problem." Her head jerked up. "No!" The word shot out of her mouth before she could stop it. His eyebrows lifted in surprise. "I mean," she swallowed hard, "I don't want charity. I just wanted to borrow." The man's lips twitched like he didn't know whether to be angry or impressed. "Borrow? You're 9 years old." Kendra stood a little straighter. "I'm almost 10. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, something like admiration mixed with sadness. He crouched a little so he was closer to her height, his coat folding neatly around him as he spoke softly. "You walked here carrying your baby brother with 15 cents in your hand, just to borrow money for milk?" Kendra felt her throat closing again. She nodded. Her voice cracked when she said, "He's hungry. Mama said to just try." The man didn't answer right away. He stared at her like he was seeing something he couldn't quite explain. Then finally he said, "Stay right here." Kendra's stomach knotted. She didn't know if he was leaving or calling someone but he turned, walked to the fridge, and pulled out a gallon of milk. He grabbed a second one, and then, without a word, he started filling his cart with things: formula, baby food, bread, canned soup. His movements were quick, like a man on a mission. Kendra blinked, her heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. Why was he doing this? What did he want? When he turned back, his voice was firm, but his eyes told another story. "Come on, Kendra. You're leaving with me after this. We're going to talk about how to make sure you and Noah never have to go through this again." But what Kendra didn't know was that this man's decision had nothing to do with pity, and everything to do with a promise he once made to himself long ago. As Kendra stood frozen in that aisle, clutching Noah and watching the stranger fill his cart like some kind of miracle in motion, her mind spun with questions. Why was he doing this? Was he serious about her leaving with him? What would Mama say? But across from her, the man, Marcus Ellison, wasn't thinking about appearances or judgment. His mind had gone somewhere else entirely. Marcus Ellison, 43 years old, CEO of a tech consulting firm based in Dallas, Texas. Net worth hovering near 8 figures. He wasn't supposed to be here in this rundown food depot in Decatur, wearing a $1,000 coat that stood out like a gold chain in a church pew. He was only in town for a real estate meeting, something about buying property, flipping old buildings into apartments. He didn't even plan on stopping at a grocery store tonight. But life has a funny way of bringing you face to face with ghosts you thought you buried. As he slid jars of baby food into the cart, flashes of his own childhood punched through his mind like old photographs. A one-room apartment in Shreveport, Louisiana, with peeling paint and a leaking roof. A mother who worked 2 jobs and still couldn't afford enough food for the week. Nights when he went to bed with his stomach growling so loud it hurt. And one cold winter when he was about Kendra's age, standing outside a store asking strangers for spare change because his baby sister needed formula. He remembered the way people looked at him back then, some with pity, some with disgust, most with indifference. Nobody helped. Not one person stopped. That night, he made a promise. If I ever make it out of this, I'm never walking past a hungry kid without doing something about it. And now here he was, decades later, staring at the living, breathing reminder of that vow. He turned his head slightly, watching Kendra through the corner of his eye. The girl stood there holding that baby like a soldier holding a shield. Thin arms, worn jacket that didn't fit quite right, hair pulled back into two tight braids that had seen better days. But her chin was high. Her eyes, wide, dark, and steady, burned with something he recognized all too well. Determination. The kind that only comes from having nothing but still refusing to give up. Marcus swallowed hard. He didn't like how his chest felt right now. Tight, heavy, almost angry. Angry at the world. Angry at the cycle that keeps spitting out kids like her into situations like this. Angry because deep down, he knew what it meant to grow up feeling like you owe everyone and belong nowhere. "Sir?" The small voice pulled him out of his thoughts. He looked down to see Kendra staring up at him, her grip on Noah so tight his little hand poked out of the blanket like a tiny question mark. Are you mad at me?" she asked softly. The question hit him like a punch. Mad at her? No. Mad at life? Absolutely. But how could he explain that to a 9-year-old? He crouched down so they were eye level again, his knees popping slightly as he balanced on his heels. "No, Kendra," he said slowly. "I'm not mad at you. I'm mad that you even had to ask me for this. That's not how it's supposed to be." She tilted her head, confused. "What do you mean?" Marcus sighed. He wanted to tell her everything. That kids aren't supposed to feel responsible for things that aren't their fault. That grown-ups are supposed to protect them from hunger and cold. But he bit it back. She didn't need philosophy. She needed hope. "It means," he said instead, "you're one of the bravest kids I've ever met." Kendra blinked. "Really?" "Really," he said firmly. "Most grown-ups wouldn't have the guts to do what you just did." For the first time, a flicker of a smile crossed her face. Small, shy, but real. Marcus straightened up and pushed the cart toward the register. "Come on, let's get you and your brother taken care of." As he walked, whispers followed them like shadows. Some folks stared with curiosity, others with judgment. A few smiled, but Marcus didn't care. He was too busy thinking about what came next, because 1 gallon of milk wasn't going to change this kid's life. He knew that. And deep down, he also knew something else. This wasn't going to be the last time their paths crossed. But Marcus had no idea that helping Kendra would soon drag him into a storm he never saw coming. One that would test his past, his future, and everything he thought he knew about family. The cashier's scanner beeped over and over, each sound cutting through the tense silence around the register. Marcus stacked items on the conveyor belt like he was building a wall between Kendra and every judgmental glance aimed her way. Milk, formula, bread, jars of baby food, a pack of diapers, even a small stuffed bear he'd grabbed on impulse. Kendra stood behind him, clutching Noah so tightly that her arms trembled. She kept her eyes on the floor, afraid to look at the people whispering, afraid to look at the man paying for groceries that probably cost more than her family's rent. She wasn't sure what scared her more, going home empty-handed or going home with too much. "Sir," she whispered when the cashier announced the total, over $100. Her voice cracked like a twig. "Please, that's too much. I just needed milk. I can't." Marcus turned slightly, his expression calm, but sharp enough to stop her words cold. "Kendra," he said, his tone steady, "let me do this. I'm not asking for anything in return, understand?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She didn't understand. People didn't just help, not like this, not without wanting something back. The cashier bagged everything quickly, sliding glances between Marcus and the little girl holding her baby brother. When Marcus reached for his black card, the cashier hesitated for a split second, like wondering if this man had lost his mind, then swiped it without another word. When it was over, Marcus gathered the bags and turned to Kendra. "You got a way to carry this stuff?" She blinked at the pile of groceries, then at her full arms. "No," she admitted quietly. Marcus nodded once, as if he expected that. "Come on, I'll help you get it home." The words landed like a stone in her stomach. "Go home? With him?" Her eyes widened. I can't," she stammered. "My mama, she doesn't like strangers." Marcus crouched down slightly so his voice was low, calm. "Kendra, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to make sure you and Noah are okay. That's it, all right? She stared at him, trying to read his face. His eyes didn't look mean. They didn't look like the kind that lied. Still, her chest felt tight. What if she gets mad? He gave her a small, reassuring smile. Then I'll explain it to her. And if she still wants me gone, I'll leave. But I'm not letting you carry all this by yourself. Deal? Kendra hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. Deal. Marcus took the bags in one hand, his leather gloves gripping the plastic handles like they weighed nothing. In the other hand, he wheeled his empty cart back with precision before pushing the door open for her. The cold night air hit them both, sharper than before. The parking lot lights cast long shadows on the cracked pavement. As they walked down the sidewalk, Marcus glanced at her. So, Kendra, where do you live? She hesitated, then pointed down the street. Couple blocks that way, near the laundromat. Marcus nodded slowly. All right. And your mama? What's her name? Denise, she said softly. Denise Wallace, Marcus repeated, committing it to memory. She working right now? Kendra shook her head. She was. At a diner, but they let her go. Her voice wavered, but she kept walking, her sneakers slapping the concrete in quick little steps. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone calm. That why you came out tonight? Kendra nodded. We ran out of formula this morning. Mama tried to make him drink water, but he just cried. She was crying too. I told her I could fix it. I told her I'd figure it out. Marcus stopped for a second, looking down at her. 9 years old, and already carrying the weight of a whole family. Something burned in his chest. Anger, sadness, maybe both. But he pushed it down. You did more than most grown folks would have done, he said quietly. Kendra glanced up at him, searching his face. You think so? I know so, he said firmly. But listen, Kendra, no kid should feel like it's on them to fix everything. That's not your job. She pressed her lips together, hugging Noah closer. Somebody's got to do it, she whispered. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, then kept walking. He didn't have an answer for that, because once upon a time he had said the exact same thing. But neither of them knew the real test was waiting just a few doors down, and it was about to change everything. The night air bit harder the farther they walked. Streetlights flickered like tired eyes along cracked sidewalks. Old brick buildings lined the street, some with boarded windows, others tagged with graffiti that told stories no one bothered to read. Cars passed occasionally, but no one slowed down. In neighborhoods like this, people kept moving. Marcus carried the grocery bags in both hands, their weight pulling at his leather gloves. Beside him, Kendra kept a firm grip on Noah, his little head pressed against her shoulder, one tiny fist gripping a strand of her braided hair. Every now and then, Kendra peeked up at Marcus, then looked away quickly, like she wasn't sure if she should thank him or run. You walk this far every time? Marcus asked, his deep voice breaking the quiet. Kendra nodded without looking up. Yeah, sometimes Mama comes too, when she feels better. Feels better? She bit her lip. She been sick, real tired, headaches. She says it's just stress. Marcus let out a slow breath through his nose. Stress. That word could cover a mountain of pain. He knew. He'd seen it in his own mother's face, how poverty eats at you quietly, slowly, until your body gives up before your spirit does. How old are you, Kendra? 9, she said softly, then like it mattered, added, almost 10. He gave her a sidelong glance and a small nod. And already taking care of a baby. She shrugged one small shoulder. Somebody's gotta. The words hit him like an echo from his past. He remembered saying those exact ones when he was her age, carrying his sister to school because Mama had to work. His throat tightened, but he kept his voice steady. You're tough, he said, but even tough kids need help sometimes. Kendra didn't answer. She just kept walking, her breath fogging the cold air. When they turned the last corner, Marcus saw it. The building she called home. A squat, aging apartment complex with peeling paint and rust-streaked balconies. The security light over the entrance flickered like it was hanging on by a thread. A busted tricycle lay on its side near the steps. Kendra led him up 2 flights of stairs, careful not to jostle Noah. At the top, she stopped in front of a dented door with faded numbers barely hanging on. She shifted Noah in her arms and gave Marcus a quick, nervous glance. Please, don't say nothing to make her feel bad, she whispered. Marcus crouched slightly, meeting her eyes. I'm not here to make her feel bad. I just want to help, okay? She hesitated, then gave a tiny nod and knocked. The door opened after a long pause. A woman stood there, her face pale and tired, dark circles smudged beneath her eyes. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun, and she wore an old gray sweatshirt that hung off her shoulders. She looked from Kendra to Marcus, her brows furrowing. Kendra, what is this? Who? Her voice cut off when she saw the grocery bags dangling from Marcus's hands. Mama, Kendra said quickly, her words tumbling out. This is Mr. Ellison. I asked him for milk and... You what? The woman's voice cracked sharp, like a whip. Kendra, you can't be out here talking to strangers. Marcus raised a hand, his voice calm and even. Ma'am, I understand how this looks, but I'm not here to cause trouble. Your daughter came into that store trying to do the right thing. She didn't ask for a handout. She asked for a loan. The woman's lips trembled, her anger melting into something else. Shame, fear. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't want her to. Marcus shook his head. Don't apologize. You've got nothing to be ashamed of. Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. She stepped aside quietly. Come in. The apartment was small and dimly lit. The kind of place where every surface worked overtime. Kitchen table doubling as homework desk, couch doubling as a bed. A single heater rattled in the corner, fighting the cold. Marcus set the bags on the counter, the sound of plastic loud in the silence. Kendra finally exhaled, lowering Noah into a worn playpen near the couch. The baby cooed softly, reaching for a toy that wasn't there. Denise, because now Marcus had a name for her, stood by the table, wringing her hands. I don't know how to thank you, she said quietly. Marcus looked at her, then at Kendra. His jaw tightened. You don't have to thank me. Just tell me what's really going on here. Denise hesitated, her shoulders sagging like a roof giving in under years of weight. I lost my job 2 weeks ago. Tips at the diner were slow for months, then the manager cut my hours. Rent's due, light bills late. I've been trying, I swear, but... Her voice broke. Everything just hit at once. Marcus felt that old anger rise again, not at her, but at the trap she was stuck in. Denise, he said slowly, you've got 2 choices right now. You can keep fighting alone, or you can let somebody help you, no strings attached. Her eyes flickered up, wet and doubtful. Why? She whispered. Why would you do that? Marcus's throat tightened, but his voice was steady when he answered. Because once upon a time, somebody should have done the same for me. But what Marcus didn't know was that helping them tonight would open a door he could never close, and not everyone would be happy about it. Marcus sat on the worn couch, elbows on his knees, while Denise paced the small living room like a woman holding the weight of the world in her hands. Kendra knelt near the playpen, gently rocking Noah as he sucked on his tiny fist. The heater hummed its tired tune in the corner, but the cold still crept through the cracks in the window frame. You don't have to do this, Denise said finally, her voice cracking under the strain. You already bought groceries. That's more than anyone's done for us in months. Marcus looked at her steadily. Denise, groceries are a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. You need something permanent. A job. A plan. Her laugh was hollow. A job? I've been trying. Nobody's hiring. And even if they were, I can't leave these kids. Daycare costs more than rent. Every door I knock on slams in my face. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his jaw. He wasn't a man who made decisions on impulse. His success came from control, running numbers, weighing risks, staying 3 steps ahead. But tonight was different. He'd been that kid before, sitting in a freezing apartment with an empty fridge and a mother breaking under the pressure. He remembered the shame, the helplessness. He remembered wishing for one person, just one, to step in and say, I've got you. He took a deep breath. What if I told you, I can help you get back on your feet, not just for tonight, for good? Denise froze mid-step. Her tired eyes narrowed, wary. What do you mean? I own a chain of commercial properties in Texas, Marcus said calmly. One of them is a diner. I could get you a position there. Good pay. Stable hours. She blinked, like the words didn't register. Texas? That's a whole other world. It's a chance, Marcus said, his voice steady. A real one. I'll even cover your first few months' rent in a decent place. Help with daycare until you're settled. The room went silent. Even the heater seemed to hush for a second. Kendra turned, her wide eyes darting between them. Mama, does that mean we'd move? Denise stared at Marcus like he'd just offered her the moon. Her lips trembled. Why? She whispered again. Why would you do that for us? Marcus's gaze softened. Because someone should have done it for me and my mama a long time ago. Nobody did. So now I do it when I can. Denise sank into the chair across from him, her hands shaking. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Marcus said simply. But before Denise could answer, a sharp knock rattled the door. 3 quick bangs loud enough to make Noah whimper. Kendra jumped. Denise's face drained of color. Who is that? Marcus asked, his voice low. Denise hesitated, biting her lip. Probably my landlord. I told him I'd have the money by Friday. Her voice broke. I don't have it. The knock came again, harder this time. Then a voice, deep and impatient. Denise, open up. You're 3 weeks late. Marcus stood slowly, his frame filling the small room like a shadow. Stay here, he said firmly, moving toward the door. Denise jumped up. No, please, don't. But it was too late. Marcus pulled the door open. A man stood there, mid-50s, heavyset with a faded baseball cap pulled low. His breath smelled of cheap beer, and his eyes swept past Marcus like he didn't exist. Where's Denise? He barked. You got my rent or not? Marcus stepped into the doorway, his voice calm but carrying steel. She'll have it soon. The landlord frowned. And who the hell are you? Marcus's eyes locked on his, unblinking. The man making sure she does. Something in his tone made the landlord hesitate. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Well, tell her she's got until Friday. After that, you'll get it tomorrow, Marcus cut in, his voice flat as stone. The man stared at him, sizing him up. Then, without another word, he turned and stomped down the hall. Marcus shut the door slowly, the sound echoing like a gavel. Denise stood frozen, her hands trembling. What did you just do? I bought you some time, Marcus said calmly. Then he picked up his phone, tapped the screen, and turned to her. Pack your things. You and your kids are flying to Texas tomorrow. Her breath caught. Tomorrow? But no buts, Marcus said, his voice firm but not unkind. This is your chance, Denise. You can keep drowning, or you can let me pull you out. Denise stared at him, tears slipping down her cheeks. She looked at Kendra, then back at Marcus. Finally, she whispered the word that would change everything. Yes. But Marcus had no idea that his decision to help this family would soon put his own reputation and his deepest secret on the line. The next morning, the apartment was alive with movement, a kind of frantic hope no one had felt in months. Denise stuffed clothes into an old duffel bag, while Kendra tried to keep Noah entertained with a set of jingling keys. Marcus stood by the door, phone pressed to his ear, confirming flight times and securing temporary housing. When the call ended, he looked at Denise. Car will be here in an hour. You'll fly into Dallas, and my assistant will meet you at the airport. She'll take you straight to the apartment I rented for you. First month's paid, utilities covered, daycare lined up for Noah, and the diner job starts Monday. Denise stared at him like he was speaking another language. Her hands trembled as she zipped the bag. Marcus, I don't even know how to thank you. He shook his head. You don't owe me thanks. You owe yourself a chance. Take it. Kendra peeked up at him from the floor, her small voice cutting through the hum of chaos. Mr. Ellison? Marcus crouched so they were eye level. Yeah? She hesitated, her fingers twisting in her lap. When I said I'd pay you back, I meant it. Someday I'm gonna. His chest tightened, and for a moment he couldn't speak. He saw himself at her age, barefoot in a cold apartment, making promises no one believed he could keep. Marcus smiled, a slow curve of sincerity that reached his eyes. You know what, Kendra? The best way you can pay me back is by never forgetting what you did tonight. You asked for help when it mattered. That's not weakness, that's strength. Her brow furrowed, like she was trying to memorize every word. Why did you really help us? Marcus's gaze softened. Because once upon a time, I was you. Hungry, tired, scared, and I promised myself if I ever made it out, I'd never walk past a kid in need. And I don't break promises. For a long moment, the room was silent except for Noah's little coos. Then Denise crossed the room and hugged Marcus, tight, like she was afraid to let go. He froze for a second, then returned the embrace, his voice low. You've got this, Denise. Don't look back. Minutes later, the sound of a car horn floated up from the street. It was time. Marcus helped carry the bags down, holding the car door as Kendra climbed in with Noah in her lap. She looked out the window at him, her eyes shining with something between gratitude and awe. Bye, Mr. Ellison, she said softly. Marcus smiled and tipped his head. Bye, Kendra. Go write the story you deserve. The car pulled away slowly, disappearing into the city streets. Marcus stood there for a long moment, hands in his coat pockets, staring at the empty road. He didn't know if he'd ever see them again, but he hoped he would, because deep down, he believed something. Every act of kindness plants a seed, and one day, that seed grows into something bigger than all of us. Sometimes, the smallest voices carry the loudest truths. We live in a world where people walk past each other every day without seeing what's right in front of them. But one act of kindness, just one, can rewrite someone's entire story, and maybe even yours. If this story moved you, ask yourself, who can I help today? It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. Share this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and let's remind the world that compassion still exists.